Welcome to KWH Unlocked, where we are unlocking the stories behind some of our most tenured agents that have been with the company for a number of years, have experienced great success. And so this is all about real stories, real people, real business, and real success. And we can't wait to get started. We are kicking things off with our Eagle Award winner from 2024. If you're not with Heritage, the Eagle Award is the highest award you can get in KW, and it's about people that really not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk and how they live their lives, how they live their business, and how they give back to the community and the industry and provide even more love and energy in the culture that is KW Heritage. And so, Joe, thank you for being here. I know you weren't the biggest fan of the initial idea, but just like you always are, you're a team player and you jumped right in and said you'll do it. So welcome aboard, my friend. We're excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Truly an honor to be sitting here with you and in the lobby of KW Heritage, and looking forward to kicking this off.
I appreciate it, and the honor's all mine to have you here. I'm just thrilled that you said yes to this. And yeah, like you said, we're shooting this live in our lobby, and we plan to continue to do that. You know, we've been very blessed and proud to call this building our home, and we've got a ton of square foot. You know, we've got all these offices and agents coming in and out all day. It's kind of what we call controlled chaos, and we said, what better way to show that off than right here in our own lobby? So we're excited to kick things off. Having said that, Joe, I mean, take me back. How long have you been with us now? Remind me how long you've been with us and how long you've been in the industry. Let's start there real quick.
Oh, my goodness. So I think I've been with Heritage now 13 years.
Okay.
And we're going on 13.
Yeah. Nice.
Been in the industry since 1993.
Okay. And so I know real estate or general real estate wasn't your first career. So walk us through kind of the history and trajectory of your careers before you got into real estate, and then what led you to making the jump into general real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I served in the Army.
Okay.
For a few years and joined out of San Antonio.
Nice.
I did an overseas tour, spent some time in Germany and some other places in Texas and throughout the U.S., but I was a helicopter crew chief.
Nice.
Yeah, and so had a good time doing that. And then when I got out of the Army, I came back to San Antonio. I joined the Army National Guard, and so I was a weekend warrior, right?
Okay.
And then was going to UTSA, working in restaurants, and just trying to get through school.
Yeah.
And then I got, I guess you would say, recruited by a sales manager for.
They're always recruiting, right? And,
yeah.
and it's funny how many times it happens at restaurants. I've been at restaurants with builder reps and managers, and they love who's serving them in that meal, and they approach them like, hey, have you ever thought about real estate?
Yeah, you never know. The person you meet might be your next employer. So, you know, and I think I try to impart that to people that I meet in the service industry or whatever industry. You know, this could be their opportunity for an interview.
Yeah.
But any rate, getting back on track. So I worked for Rayco Homes. Started there in 1993.
Which Rayco, for those in San Antonio, they know it now as what? Isn't it? That it turned into
KB.
KB, yes, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I was having a brain fart there all of a sudden. Yeah, it turned into KB, one of our largest builders here in town.
Yeah, I was actually an on-site salesperson for sitting in a model home, and this was in, like I said, 1993, and we had 50% of the market. So the new home market.
What was the average price point of a new build back then in '93?
I don't remember what the average price point was. I'll tell you, we had a home for $59,950. It was 912 square feet.
Yeah.
And this was in Hunter's Chase, right there.
I know Hunter's Chase. Yeah.
Yeah, right there at Hausman, and for those of you who don't know, Hausman near Babcock. You could get a home for $60,000.
$60,000. Look at that. And that same house today is.
But what was the interest rate?
Oh, what was it? I was going to say. 18?
8%.
8%, okay.
In the
90s, so it was after the 80s, when we had the whole spike and all that. Okay.
Yeah, but people were still buying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were afraid it was going to go to 10%.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, so selling homes between, I don't know, it was 60,000 to, let's say, maybe 150,000. 130 was probably our highest sales point there.
Be curious to pull up a CMA and see what that same home is selling for now. You know, it's crazy how much San Antonio's grown and evolved over the years. Do you have any idea how much new builds were going up back then? I know nowadays we're around 12 or 14,000 new builds a year. I don't know what it was like back then.
We were doing 2,800 homes a year.
Okay.
Half the market.
Yeah.
So if do the math.
About $4,000 or $5,000.
I'm not good at math, but yeah.
Yeah, look at
So-
that, man. San Antonio just keeps growing. Well, I love that you've been able to ride that wave from then until now. So how long were you in new home sales?
So I did that for, I was with KB Rayco. I was part of the acquisition. I was there for 9 years. I went into, I was a sales manager for the last 3 years. I was at KB.
Okay.
And then I moved over to a couple other home builders in management positions.
Yeah.
And
People
then-
don't realize going from sales to management how different it is, especially in the new home world.
Yeah, it's a different animal, and but you're always selling. You're just selling to different people. I mean, rather than direct to the consumer, you're selling to your boss or your boss's boss.
You're
So
right.
sales to sales.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Well, I love it. And then, so going from new homes into general real estate, what made you take that leap?
man, this was in 2008, and finally I determined that I was with a home builder, and I was in a management position. And I said, I think this could be a good time to get into general real estate. And, obviously we had the 2008,
that little
collapse.
blip on the radar there. Yeah.
Well, my wife was pregnant. We bought a new home, and I left my job all in the same month.
Yeah.
And and here we are today. And that was, so my daughter's 17 years ago.
Yeah.
When I finally made the jump into general real estate.
Okay.
So.
Wow. And so, 2008, talk about a transformation in the industry and the economy at that time. So, one of the hardest times to make a leap. How did you survive that first year, that second year? Because we didn't really feel much relief until, around 2012 or so when San Antonio started to boom again. So those first few years had to be a struggle. Walk us through that.
Well, so I did what I thought I was good at. I did open houses for home builders. I sat on site, and they were a little more liberal in terms of allowing that. Agents would take maybe the days off for the salesperson that's actually employed for the builder.
Yeah.
And I would do that 2 to 4 days a week.
2 to 4 days a week.
Yeah, and I built a little bit of a business off of that. And honestly, I just didn't have some of the distractions. I think in a lot of ways, it's easier to start in this business if you don't already have preconceived notions. We got people in the audience right now to my right, off camera, who have done just that. They've come in from other industries and without distractions, and they're disruptors for our business. But to your point, you just go out and you find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Lean on maybe your experience.
Well, it's like what we talk about all the time here in the office, that the market doesn't dictate your success, it dictates your strategy. And if you work towards what the market is presently, there's always success. Even in the last few years when the interest rates have been higher and inventory has been growing, we still have a number of agents that have been producing great numbers and seeing growth in their business, but they switched their strategy. And it sounds like back then that's exactly what you did. You said, okay, well, there's still an opportunity with builders and open houses, and you went after that.
Right. And then you have the technologies that start to come.
Yeah.
You got disruptions with technology, and it's easy to get lackadaisical and lean on traditional methods that might help you, but you still have to lean on the new and the new shiny objects in the industry.
It's funny because we still are going through evolutions today, and at a faster pace. It seems like. I was just at the leadership conferences in Dallas for KWRI, and they had the CIO from Zillow Technologies there, and he said, when the internet came out, it was about 4 or 5 years before at least half the country was on the World Wide Web, as they described it. And then the next phase was, oh darn it, I forget what, it was the smartphones, like when the iPhone came out. He said, the first year Apple sold 1 million, the second year 4 million, the next year 20 million, but they still, that's not even half the country yet. ChatGPT rolls out, and within the first, I think he said 2 months, don't quote me on this, Facebook, but the first 2 months, it was something like 100 million users. And so it's the fastest adoption rate of technology in humankind. And so that timeline speeding back up, but even back in 93 and then jumping into 08 when you got into general, there had to be some pretty big shifts. So in 93, was MLS out yet, or how were you all marketing your properties back then? How would you get the word out if it wasn't for the internet?
So in 93, MLS was, I didn't even know what it was. Because it was brand new in the industry, right? So how did we market? I mean, paper brochures and flyers to real estate offices and hosting real estate events and getting realtors because, believe it or not, at Rayco, we would pay at slab pour. So we would pay commission at slab pour.
Yeah.
It wasn't a loan, a draw, but if a realtor brought a client at slab pour, guess how many terminations we had were unearned commissions?
Well, okay,
Take a guess.
Hit me.
What percentage?
Let's see. So if you're paying it slab, it was probably less than what it is now. So I don't know what the fall through rate is now. So 20%, 30?
Okay, I will share with you. We had a 50% termination rate. That doesn't mean we had 50% unearned commissions, but 50% cancellation rate. So our thought process is,
Salo, can I give this?
if you weren't,
I'm sorry, Jill. I forgot to turn off my phone. We'll edit this out, and it's vibrating in my pocket. Thank you, my friend.
yeah. So this is kind of crazy, but if you weren't canceling enough, you weren't writing enough at that
interesting.
time. Yeah. So we had
Throw it all up at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah, we were probably unearned commissions about 20%.
Interesting.
So that means that we're paid, but it was a cost of doing business because we needed the realtor business, and so Rayco was big at that. The executives, and when KB acquired Rayco, they took the entire Rayco model throughout the United States. Right. It was consistency, predictability, and discipline.
Yeah.
And that was there, and mixed in with I can't forget remember the term. At any rate, those were the key ingredients.
Yeah.
And so,
when I've heard stories from a bunch of agents that were around back in the 90s and stuff about the huge Rayco parties there at the headquarters that's still down there outside the medical center, and how much of a focus they had on realtors. And it's fascinating over the years, even with all the technology evolvements that we've been talking about, there's still such a strong builder-realtor relationship here in San Antonio market. I think it's something like 91% of all new home construction still goes through a realtor.
Wow, that's a big number.
And I love hearing that a lot of your success back then was face-to-face contact and old school, hitting the road and getting the word out there, because that stuff still applies to today. So, you said you started out with open houses. Is that something that you still see as a viable model here in today's market?
It is. I mean, again, I look to my friends off camera, and they'll smile at me, I'm sure. Y'all paying attention over there? Yeah, I mean, they swear by it. I know, I won't name drop, but Susan Luger swears by it. I know Melissa Andrade. Definitely, that's a great way to meet people and see if you can provide some service.
So for the new agents that might be tuning in and want to get more successful at open houses, I mean, I'll give my 2 cents, but I'd love to hear yours first. What makes them a viable agent or an attractive agent for listing agents to let them do open houses? For those new agents that say, I want to do more open houses, but I'm struggling to find an agent that'll let me host, or how can I present myself in a way that'll get the listing agent to allow me to host one of their listings?
Well, this is cliche. Success leaves clues. Find somebody who's doing it right. Go do it with them, and then show that you're a person that can be counted on.
Yeah.
Because there are often times that agents apply to be it, not a formal application, but they'll call and they'll ask if I can do an open house.
Right.
But then they don't show up, or they're late, or did they provide an effective benefit for both the listing agent, the seller, et cetera? I mean, there is an art to it, and people use their own personalities or their own style or whatever. But I would find somebody who's done it and had success. Yeah. And there's not a lot of secrets here. I mean, in terms of what we do, right? We share. Absolutely. That's a great thing about the company. And I'll name drop again. Melissa and Susan will probably sit down and answer questions for you.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, that's one of the things I love most about Heritage is it's truly a rising tide lifts all ships mentality. All of our agents, from Scott Maloof, Monique Slater, Anna Wormke on down, everybody here, you can walk up to any of our highest producing agents and say, hey, I've got a question about X, Y, or Z, and they'll open up their business plan and walk you through it. So I love what you said, success leaves clues on those agents that are doing open houses. I know from my own experience, if I had someone who failed to represent me well on an open house, they were off my list. And the ones that gave me good feedback, showed up on time, followed up immediately afterwards so I could call back to my seller, those were the ones that went to the top of my list for the next open house need. I'd start there and then see if they were available before I opened it up.
Yeah, I mean, you were running a business and you had a very successful business. You had a lot of listings. So I'm sure you had a lot of opportunity for open houses. That means if I'm going to do an open house, then I'm going to do it, the best I can because I want the opportunity on the next one.
Exactly.
So that's like a machine. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So you're going through your first few years, you're doing more open houses. How long were you in the industry before you felt like you had developed not only a stable business but a stable income? Because going
I'm still looking for that.
Still looking for that one. We still go through the waves, right? Yeah. So what was your timeline? Do you think? Do you think it was the first? Obviously, most people, the Scott Malus of the world who have a phenomenal first year, they're the exception to the rule. But
Sure.
A lot of people like Craig and myself had very difficult first years. What was your first year like in real estate?
I wouldn't say that was difficult. Because I did have the success at the open house and networking with home builders.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't 2008 might have been one of the worst years in real estate, right?
Right.
Could have been. But I don't think that was my worst year.
Okay, that's good.
But I just really started looking at how other people are doing, conducting business and adopting some principles. But and you still have the peaks and the valleys. I mean, you do, and unless you have a team, and even with a team concept. But I don't have a team. I mean, it's all independent. I like the chaos, I guess.
Yeah.
But so I try different. I'm an idea guy, and so I'm always looking at different ideas and things like that.
Well, and you've used the term business quite a bit, and that's what we talk to our agents all the time about, is that you've really got to treat this as a business.
Yeah.
What are some of the principles or models and systems you've applied to your career that have made it a business and make it operate like a business?
Okay, let me start with some things I didn't do.
Okay.
Can I start there?
Yeah, absolutely.
To build a legacy that's repeat and referral, and that's going to give you a sustained future, predictable future, is you got to stay in contact with your past clients. You got to stay in contact with your sphere of influence, and because you could leave a lot of money. And you're doing a service for that client too by staying in touch. You don't want them to end up with somebody else that's not going to be, perhaps it's the same quality of service that you do. But for the new agents especially, I mean, if you go on MLS and you pick 20 homes in MLS, just pick 20 homes and see who was the buyer's agent of that home when it last sold and who the listing agent is. And I bet 2 out of 20 would be the same buyer's agent is the listing agent, right? And so, and you've probably had it happen where you're looking at a home and you see it's for sale and you're like, wow, I wonder why they didn't use me. Has that ever happened?
Maybe a little bit more choice words than that, but yeah.
Yeah. But whose fault is that, right?
It's 100% my own fault. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I tell agents all the time.
Yeah. And so if you don't stay in contact, and it's not that hard to set up, but it's setting it up.
Exactly.
If you don't do that, you're going to make your life a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I did, certainly. I've made a lot of mistakes. And so when I talk to people, especially new agents, I try to share with them mistakes that maybe I made.
Yeah. Help them to learn from it and learn it at a faster pace.
Right. And so I'm really, at this age and, this point in my career, I really enjoy talking to people, and especially new agents, and maybe giving them a few pointers, taking maybe by the side and saying, hey, here's what might work for you.
Right.
This is what I didn't do. This is how it could have helped me today.
Yeah, I think the stats still apply that it's something like 90% of sellers would reuse their listing agent or their buyer's agent, I think just realtor in general, but something like 80% don't. And it's not necessarily because they were unhappy, obviously, if they said they're going to use them, but it's that their agent didn't stay in touch with them after the fact.
Yeah, charm will only go so far, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to stay in touch, and was it? I think Southwestern Bell used to have a commercial. Reach out and touch someone.
Yeah.
So reach out and touch your sphere. Reach out and touch your clients, and I'm still,
Yeah, it's
regretting
funny.
that.
You see agents that we become best friends with our clients for 90 days. We become their therapist, their marriage counselor, their financial advisor. Sometimes we help them with digesting inspections and appraisals, and we manage their dates and stress, and we get so close.
Yeah.
We really become a part of their family, and then sometimes we get to the closing table, and then it's like the relationship just dies on the vine because we're on to the next big thing and the next fire we've got to handle, negotiations. And so it's not always intentional, but the ADD kicks in for a lot of us agents, and we keep moving down our daily task. And so you're right, too often people lose touch in those relationships, and it bites them in the butt.
Yeah, and you just brought up a good point. You said it's not always intentional. That's why you have to be intentional,
Exactly.
right?
And
And
treat
if
it
you're
like a
not,
business.
you're just, it's going to be harder to grow and take you longer to grow.
Yeah.
So,
What was another mistake that you learned from that you think really helped pivot your business and grow?
I would say setting expectations. I think that's one of the most important things you learn in the business. And I don't think that was so much a mistake. I avoided the pitfalls of not setting expectations because I learned that in new home sales. That was driven. That was, so setting expectations in the beginning of your first conversation with a client is key to making the business a lot easier. So if you set expectations, rather than letting the client set the expectation, right?
Yeah.
And then you deliver, meet or exceed those expectations. This is an expectations business. There are no happy surprises in this business,
Ain't
right?
that the truth?
None.
Yeah.
Any surprise is going to be fraught. But if you set the expectation that this could happen,
100%. Yeah. Set the expectation, remind them again what's going to happen, and then it happens, and then you remind them again, hey, remember when we had that conversation twice before? Now we're at that moment, and it's a lot easier to digest when it does happen.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so now walk me through. You've been in the business for a little while. Obviously, you're married, you have a family. Tell me a little bit about the personal life, and then I want to talk to you about how did you tie in the work life, personal life, and the balance between the two. So tell me a little bit about home life. What's it like for you?
Yeah, so I'm married. My wife is Roxanne. She's native San Antonio.
Woo-hoo.
She went to Ursuline Academy,
Okay,
and she graduated from St. Mary's University.
Wow.
And we have 3 kids together.
Okay.
Our oldest is Connor, 23. Rackham, Texas Tech.
Okay, I was just about to
He
say, where's he going to school? Yeah.
He just graduated
That's
from
right.
Texas Tech in December. He's construction engineering.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. He's on the commercial realm.
Yeah.
So for construction. But
Nice.
yeah, and then his sister is Cameron. She is 21, just turned 21 in April.
Okay.
And she's now a senior at Texas Tech,
Okay.
accounting major.
Okay. Almost got 2 done. Yeah.
Yeah, she's staying back for her master's because
Very
it's
nice.
accounting, and she's just got on with Ernst & Young as an intern, which is a huge accounting firm.
Yeah.
We know that.
Uh-huh.
And then the little one, I still call the little one, 17.
The little ones are always our little ones. Yeah.
Yeah, she's now a senior at Ronald Reagan High School,
Very
and
nice.
with the I guess aspiration of going to Texas Tech
Okay,
with her
okay.
with her siblings.
Yeah. Do you get a multi-student discount once you get 2 or 3 in there? Sure would be nice, right?
Yeah, that would be nice. It's but they're doing well, and their mom takes a lot of time with them, always has, and she's big on education, and so it's always been chaos in terms of, as you know, just sports and extracurricular activities. My son did every sport. My middle child played every sport. My daughter, the youngest, is on the dance team at Reagan.
Yeah.
And so it was divide and conquer. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I had 2 of mine went to San Antonio Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's where my
So,
girls go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Shout out to Saks.
Yeah. Great school.
We've got a
And it
number
was-
of our families here at Heritage that have kiddos at Saks. It's an awesome environment.
Yeah, and it was a good foundation. So good preparatory school. So
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, you said it. It's a balancing act. You had kids with lots of activities. You've got your spouse as well. And so a lot of people get into real estate because they go, great, I get to be my own boss. I get to make my own hours. If only it was as easy as the concept. You know, a lot of agents struggle with that, especially as they grow their business. How did you handle that at home amongst you and your wife? And what were the conversations like with you and Roxanne on how to be available as a realtor? Because we do give a lot of ourselves to our clients, but then also still be available for Roxanne and the kids.
Well, that's one thing is real estate does afford you some flexibility,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Because you're able to maybe organize things around other commitments, family commitments. So that was a rewarding thing, you know, in this career.
Yeah.
Is being more flexible, and so I very rarely missed a game or a dance recital, or we were just able to make it work, and especially when the kids started driving. I mean, how old is your oldest?
Our oldest is 19. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you remember it. I mean, it did take a little bit off, but because they can drive the
Yeah,
lift.
they can start to help with the errands.
Sorry about that,
He's
Salo.
hitting the equipment.
Salo's looking
When you
at
break
me
it,
like,
you
what
buy
are you doing? Yeah, so that takes a little bit off because they help out.
Yeah. So were you a big time blocker with your calendar? Would you and your wife share calendars? How did you go about planning?
No. We winged it.
Okay,
I'm not going to tell you we had this,
Okay.
you know, calendar set up with events, and no.
You know, everybody's got
didn't.
their different ways of planning it, so it's good
Yeah.
to hear that, you know, there was still a balance there. And how long have y'all been married now?
20, I have to do the math,
Put you on the
23
spot.
years?
23
Yeah.
years, okay. Yeah, and you made it work. You had the
Yeah.
balance. You were still able to be there for the kiddos, and I'm sure they enjoyed that as well.
Last time I checked, it still works, so I'm just kidding. My wife will shoot me.
And so then I'm sure there was a part in your business where you went from, okay, I'm doing well, I've got consistent, and then there was a part where it started to step up to that next level. What point in your career was that, and what do you think was the changing factor that helped you take it up a notch?
Man, that's... at what point? So what was it like? You had an epiphany like this?
Yeah,
is
was
gonna,
there a point where you started going, oh, wow, I just stepped it up. I saw an increase in units and volume,
Okay.
making more money. And was there a key to that success that really unlocked that for you?
No, it's when you see your database growing, I think, and then you've got more people that you know have contacts with,
Yeah.
and then you repeat and referral. So clients that you've maybe sold a home to are ready to sell, and then they have friends, and then I can't tell you a timeline or what have you.
Yeah.
And I know there are some agents here that are real creative, or you know, Millionaire Real Estate, the book. I mean, and they use that. I didn't implement those practices. I'd be much better off today.
Yeah.
So lesson to new agents.
Follow
Pay
the models
attention.
and systems,
Yeah.
dig deeper into the
Yeah.
KWRI models. Yeah.
I wasn't the prototypical, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit here, but
Yeah.
there's probably going to be somebody really by design that's better off in communicating how to treat it like a business. There just is.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the key things that I wanted to bring you in for today was the cultural aspect of that as well. Because, I mean, you were known through our market center, and we're a large market center of around 1,000 agents. And so to stick out in the crowd as being one of the biggest team players, anytime someone's talking about Joe, it's Joe was in town hall helping out. Joe walked me through writing my first contract. Joe walked me through, you know, my first negotiation on repairs. So what is it that makes you give back so much to the other agents? Because it's not the norm, it's the norm here in Heritage, but so much of the industry is very, they like to hold the cards to their chest, and this is my business, I don't want to share with you. And our office is so different. So what is that a part of your nature that makes you give back so much?
Well, so it took me a while. I had already been in the industry a few years before I joined Heritage, and I knew Craig through the industry. I'd known him for years. Can I tell you how I met him?
Yeah, I would love to. And
what
real quick,
time is it?
before, for those that don't know Craig Owen is what we call our OP in KW language. He's our operating principal. He's the owner of the company, but he started as an agent, moved up to the position I'm in now as team leader, and then eventually as the owner and operating principal. So how did you meet Craig originally?
So I met Craig in the industry, as I said. He was just a practicing agent, and he would come to community events and, you know, and then meet him at, you know, mixers or what have you. And got along well with him. He was a nice guy. Yeah. He was, man, I think he's everything he still is today.
He is.
Yeah, you can't.
He's a little softer version of himself, but he's still very much the force, the personality that people know Craig to be.
Yeah, had a little more hair then, right? A lot more hair.
We love you, Craig. We love you. You're still handsome, yeah.
But oddly enough, his kids, Karis, his third child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's got 5.
Yeah, she grew up with my middle child.
Nice.
Yeah, so they were really good friends. So my daughter spent a lot of time at Craig's house, and so I got to know him then as well, or even more. But he actually did a listing, was going to sell a home I had, and he's blunt. Craig is blunt.
You don't say.
Yeah, he came over to my house, and it was a rental property. He said, and the first thing he said, he's got these big dogs. These tenants have these big dogs. He goes, the dogs got to go. The dogs. I was like, dude, they're tenants. The lease isn't up. They can't just kick the dogs out because they got to go. And you could see paw prints on the window.
No, yeah.
And they weren't like tearing up the place. That was what dogs do.
But big dogs get in the way for showings.
Yeah, he's like, get rid of the dogs. I was like, so I had to wait till the lease ended. He was working with Move Up America at the time too. Yeah. So
still a great company, still around.
Yeah, and so I was still in new home sales, and then I had something go sideways on a transaction. I wasn't happy with the way the broker handled it, and so I met with Craig. I was interviewing with CityView as well, and then I had seen Craig off and on throughout the years. And he would invite me. I can't say he was like
because he would sell a lot of new construction back then, so you probably saw him in the communities and all that.
Well, I finally took him up on an offer, and was from that point on, because you talked about culture, and I just started embracing it because of the servant leadership, lead with the servant's heart, all those things, and I was like, and people were helpful to me when I joined. And the staff was always helpful, always nice, and I was like, so I started to feel at home. Yeah. And really, it was something about moving to this building is where you can sit on the sidelines and be a spectator, or you can be a participant.
I love that.
Yeah, and if there's not something that is fulfilling what you're looking for, a club, an extra activity, or you can build that here. And by design. You've got a beautiful building, right?
Yeah, we're very proud to call it home.
Yeah, it's a great home, but there's great people in the home, and so I've always, especially when we moved here. Yeah, it wasn't the building, but people became even closer together here, and it's ours, right? And then I started thinking, if there's something that's not here, you can create it. So.
And I love that about our culture. There's ideas that pop up all the time, and we go, great, take ownership of it. Let's get it going, and let's make this a reality. And you're right, it's fascinating. I have found since I've taken my position over the last year and a half and doing a lot of recruiting with agents, I have found people oftentimes think, oh, KW Heritage, it's such a large organization. I'm going to be one of 1,000. I'm going to get lost in the shuffle. And then they come to find out once they're in our environment, it's the complete opposite. Because common sense would say, yes, if there's a lot of people, you're not going to get to know everybody. But the way the industry has evolved so much over the last 10 years where splits have gone higher towards the agent's favor, caps have gone down more towards the agent's favor, so the margins are shrinking for the brokerage side. And so the best way for us to provide support is have a larger amount of agents, because that's what pays for the facilities and our amazing staff like Mary, who's behind me kicking butt and everybody loves. And so it becomes such a welcoming environment, because when you've got 30 some odd staff members here to support you, it creates fun and energy, and it really becomes a family. And so we get a lot of agents that come from the smaller boutiques because they go, I went to the smaller one because I thought it was going to be more hands-on. Yeah. But when you're in those smaller environments, the owner of the company also ends up being the broker, the manager, the compliance department, the recruiting department, the training department, and so they're stretched too thin. And because we've got such a large support team, we're all able to play our role to the max and spend a lot of time supporting and loving on the agent. So I love that was your experience as well. Yeah, but the only resources are only as good as what you use them. Amen to that. You've got to use the resource, especially for the newer agents, So
we've got everything that you probably need here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we do.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I love that. Okay, so going into it, you've agents that have been doing this for 5 or 10 years now, and they're feeling to get burnt out because real estate is one of those industries where it drains you. We give a lot to our clients. We take on their stress, we take on time management and dates and negotiations and just the stress that comes with buying and selling homes. How you've been doing this side of it now 13 years, how have you survived that from a mental health perspective and not experiencing burnout and continuing to enjoy what you do day in and day out? Walk us through that.
Man, you try to park the emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to have a lot of knee-jerk reactions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get an email and then you fire off an email,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you just take your time, and then maybe you look at the other side, and you don't know what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I meet with clients, I ask them to provide grace in situations. You might have a situation come up, and then if you use a knee-jerk emotional reaction, well, guess what? You might be asking for grace. So if you're asking for grace and you didn't give it, how are you, you know? So it's a two-way street. And sometimes getting you what you want is helping the other side get what they want. And you're not caving. I mean, that's just part of negotiations, right?
Yeah.
It's helping the other side at least think they got what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a zero-sum game, right?
It's so true.
Both one side doesn't have to lose for the other side to win, and so you get those maximizers that might believe that. So, in most negotiations, where do most negotiations occur?
Yeah.
It's between you and your principal, right? That's where the negotiations occur.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you make a great point because it's very much people think because we're on opposite sides of a transaction, if I have a seller and you have the buyer, that we've got to be at war with each other. When in reality, we all have the same goal, which is to get the home sold. My sellers want to sell it to your clients and your clients want to buy it from my clients. And so we've got the same end goal, which is get the home sold. And so it's how can we work together to achieve everybody's goals and everybody win, like you said. So I love that that's your mindset because I think that copies a lot of our agents' mindsets.
For sure.
How often, especially in San Antonio, have you worked multiple deals with the same agents throughout your 13 years?
Oh man, that happens frequently.
Yeah.
And so I also learned long ago that the quickest opportunity to your next commission might be through somebody you burned. So I mean, that could be the easiest deal. It could be the easiest route to your next transaction,
right,
let's say. And so try not to burn anybody.
Yeah.
And that could be anything. And sometimes it's just providing a level of grace. And you don't have to be the know-it-all guy. We're not attorneys. We're facilitators. We're fiduciaries. And like you said, you got somebody who wants to buy a home, somebody who wants to sell a home. Sometimes the agent is the only one standing in the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, and really, what it's like you say, what goes around comes around. And during COVID, I'm sure you experienced the same thing I did. There were several transactions where I would win out in the transaction amongst 10 or 12 or 15, however many offers there were during these crazy COVID times. And the only way we got the transaction was through the relationship that had already been previously established with the listing agent. They went, Grant, your deal might not be the highest or the right terms for what this client wants, but based on past experiences, you've helped me solve hurdles, you've communicated the whole time, you were ahead of problems. And so I've explained that to my seller. And so we want to cross the finish line. And so we're going to go with you guys. I mean, did you experience that same thing during COVID?
I did. I had a couple of opportunities like that. So because it's not always the highest price offer, right? Because you might not end up getting that price. It's all terms and conditions and the likelihood that the transaction is going to close, right? And close more favorably to me, whichever side you're on. So building up that relationship with the other side is really important.
Especially in markets, I think, like San Antonio. I mean, it's the biggest small town in the world.
We hear that all the time, and it is because there's circles, right? I mean, a lot of people swimming in the same circles. And
well, and they've always said, and I think the stats probably still apply that 80% of the business is done by 20% of the agents. And so if you're producing at a high level, odds are you're going to run into more often agents on the other side that are also producing at a high level. And so you end up doing those repeat transactions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very nice. What have the last few years been like you since the pandemic? Of course, we went through the rush of the pandemic and we were running 100 miles an hour, it felt like, on the treadmill. And then, of course, when it dialed back down, we're at about our pre-pandemic pace right now. But it feels like, because we've been running for so long, that now we're slowly walking. But, of course, the data says otherwise. So walk us through 22, 23, 24. What were those years like for you in real estate?
Well, I mean, you obviously see an increase in inventory, and then you see the interest rates start to tick up back to a more normal range. But it happened really quick, right? I mean, don't kid ourselves. The change was almost overnight, in the real estate world.
Yeah.
But we can talk about markets, right? But like the San Antonio market, it's not like this monolithic thing. It's all real estate is local, and it's local down to the street you live on. So you can't. I know we have these market averages and statistics and number of people buying, but it comes down to the home and how it compares to maybe another home that's similar to it. And so you base the information on submarkets when you're doing CMAs, but you have a lot of reluctant sellers. I think the biggest pushback today is there are sellers that are upside down.
Yeah.
They're not going to make money. They might have to write a check at closing. And we had that in 2008, 2009, or 2010. Even after we got over the '08 business, you still had people that were upside down, right?
Well, in a conservative market like San Antonio, we've always been a 2 to 3% on average appreciation rate. And so, I mean, most of the time when I was still in sales, I would tell most of my sellers it's going to take about 2 to 3 years on average just to get to that break-even point before the equity really starts to build up, especially if, it was a minimum down payment type of purchase. So, you are still running into those.
So you have those, and they need to sell. Like
Right.
I've got a couple of clients that military on our transferring, and they're a little upside down. They're just negative equity, and so there's not a lot of room. But in order to achieve what they need, they might have to take a price reduction. You set that expectation in the beginning, but I think that's where the biggest, I guess, difficulty is those that don't have the equity but truly need to sell. I mean, they're transferring, and they don't want to be long distance landlords. They might end up having to be. That could be a last resort, but they're reluctant to do that.
Well, and so you've had production over the last few years since the market has changed. What are you finding as the homes that you are having success on? What's the secret behind them? What's the recipe that's causing those ones to sell right now?
Price.
I
mean, they've got to be priced right. Out of the gate, because you see some of these homes that are selling in 10 days. Well, it's not magic, right? I mean, you do all the marketing and everything that you need to do. That you said you would do, and then you also have to price it right. I mean, price is the biggest component, and then how you position it in the market, right?
Well, and I think what we always say, if it bleeds, it leads when it comes to the news. And so if you're listening to the media right now, there's all kinds of doom and gloom. And here's the top 4 cities or top 10 cities in America that are dropping their prices and all that. But, if we're looking at the data, which is what we always follow, we're actually seeing an increase in buyer activity. We're seeing a big spike in mortgage applications, which that typically means you're going to see activity in 60 to 90 days out there in the market. And so it seems like the buyer mindset and confidence index out there is pretty high. What are you seeing on the buyer side of the buyers you're working with?
Yeah, so you are seeing an increase. Well, you've got the inventory, so they've got more choice, right? And then I think interest rate becomes a big factor for most buyers today, right? So you're definitely seeing an increase in activity. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and obviously it's a lagging index, so it tells us usually the prior month. But looks like there's a pickup in just the stats on showing time will tell us that.
We're definitely seeing the showings are holding strong. The days on market doesn't seem to be increasing tremendously. I think we're at a very healthy pace right now.
I think people are feeling a little more relaxed about what's going on, maybe globally or, nationally and locally.
I love that.
Hopefully.
We've covered a good amount. Talk to me real quick before we wrap things up. What's your why? Why are you 13 years in? You found a good amount of success. What keeps you driven? What's your big why that keeps you showing up day in and day out? Because you're truly one of those agents that you treat this like a business. You're here almost every day of the week. We see you all the time here at the events, at the meetings, helping the agents, coming back and forth with your own showings and clients. What's your big why behind it all?
Kids. Setting them up for success, right? Yeah. We just want to really, I think a lot of us as parents just want us children to do well. And we've been very fortunate with the kids we have. And so we had a promise to, help them until they graduate college. And so that's the biggest. Yeah. My wife and I both. I mean, we pour everything into them. And,
I love that.
And my middle one, the accountant, says, "Don't worry, we got you, Dad." So my son's often, he's project engineer in Austin. He said he's not making enough money. I was like, "You got new debt, son.
Yeah.
You're good."
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Of course, we've got so many agents here that love and respect you. What's the advice to a couple group of agents? So let's start with the new agents. What's the best piece of advice you'd like to give new agents that if somebody's out there listening right now, you want them to take?
Oh my goodness. Be present. Find a resource or talk to many people. If you ask me a question, get a second opinion. I'm not right on everything, but I can tell you some mistakes I've made. And just don't be just a spectator. At some point, be a participant. We have the second floor, which is, some people call it bullpen. It is town hall. I prefer town hall.
It's kind of split in the middle between our agent body on, did they call it town hall or bullpen? And even I change the vernacular day to day sometimes when I'm talking. Yeah,
use the facilities. Yeah. I mean, we have conference rooms. We have big conference rooms, little conference rooms. We have telephone booths. I think Grant's even going to put some capes in there so when we come out, we can be super like we are, right? Or use it as a cry room. I mean,
we all need those every now and then in this business, full disclosure.
I mean, we're pulling our hairs out. Oftentimes, and I got my audience over off camera, we'll say, and we have a lot of discussions, and sometimes people will come in, drop by just for social lubrication. Mm-hmm. I mean, just to have, something to talk about, about the business. Yeah. And and I'll say it again, be present, ask questions, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Get a second opinion.
I'm going to interject there for a second because it's been interesting. One of the conversations I have a lot with people is that, especially in this industry, the pendulum swings both ways. And I think, especially during the pandemic, we had such a large swing towards digital that I found the last couple years there's been a giant need for social interaction. And so with the emerging virtual platforms that are on the scene, and for some people that's a phenomenal fit. I know agents at those models that are doing very well and growing their business, but I've just always found for most of us realtors that suffer from our ADD-ness and need to recharge our social batteries, that an in-person environment is where they thrive. And I think you're right, just being, whether it's at Heritage or any office, but having some sort of brick and mortar, I still find to be very important in this industry for people to recharge.
Absolutely. And Craig, I mean, when we started the rehab on this building, it was Credit Human building, right? Right in the middle of COVID.
Yep.
I mean, people thought he was probably crazy, and maybe it was.
I think he thought he was crazy at the time, but he was dedicated to the mission and the vision. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's provided a great atmosphere for us, and it's really, I think it's helped the culture evolve in a lot of ways, and but I'm certainly appreciative of it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we hit the new agents, that mid-range agent that's coasting along but wants to take it up to the next level. What's some advice to them?
Well, I think we've got plenty of people with a lot of discipline that can coach and guide them. We have numerous resources. We even have classes devoted to helping if you're going to build a team. It's really talking to people who have done that, and I know, Grant, you are one. Craig's a great coach. If you have, questions, and just, go talk to Garrett. Garrett, if you don't know, he's our broker and attorney, and he's got ideas. But just ask questions but talk to people who have the discipline. And we've got some terrific teams here.
Yeah.
I mean,
When
great
you're, I
teams.
think what people sometimes fail to forget in real estate is you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
There's models and systems out there that are time tested
Yeah.
and proven to not only lead to success, but grow success. And it's the beauty of when you've got power in numbers, you've got multiple people, both on the staff side and the agent side, like
Sure.
yourself, to reach out to. Okay, so then on the higher producing agents they're producing at a high level, they're trying to find work-life balance, they're trying to keep up with their mental health, their physical health, while also providing to their clients and their transactions. What's the piece of advice to them to just keep them motivated, keep them going?
Oh my goodness. Stay away from alcohol. No, sorry.
It is an industry where there's a lot of it, and so that can't. If it's
I'm
a vice,
sorry.
be watching out
I'm
for
sorry.
it.
I'm not.
You're good.
I don't
You're good.
judge because I participate from time to time.
But
But
we all do sometimes. Yeah.
I think just you got to live life. Don't just be so consumed with work that you're neglecting other things. And so living life is important. I mean, the next transaction is important, the next client, et cetera. Those are all important. And believe me, we all struggle, trying to balance that. But you still have to live life at the end of the day, right?
It's one of the things that I think is really unique about just KW as a whole is, when you really look at our mission and our vision and our value propositions, it starts with faith, family, and business. And we always say in that order, because if it's just all about work or all about, quote unquote, the hustle, what's it for at the end of the day if your family doesn't have you a part of it? At the end of the day, at your funeral, nobody's going to say, what was his best-selling year, or how much money did he make that year? They're going to talk about the memories and the experiences they had with you as an individual and what kind of a person you were.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Joe, it has been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I'm so thrilled that you said yes to taking me up on this interview. And you crushed it, my friend. I mean, that's really what people wanted to hear, was just a casual conversation with cameras to find out, who is Joe behind the scenes and what led to his success in the career and his longevity. And so, I want to thank you for, one, saying yes, but then also thank you for just continuing to be such a team player and a driving force in our culture. Because I see you day in and day out. Even though you've got one of the private offices in the building, you're always in town hall with the agents. And I love stepping out of my office into town hall and seeing you consulting new agents, experienced agents, shooting the breeze, or guiding people with advice and guidance and your experiences. And it's just a pleasure to have you here and a part of our family, my friend. Yeah,
it's an honor. Can I give a thank you real quick?
By all means.
Hey, I want to thank Salo, man. I got to meet this guy. I see him every Saturday, and it's just, wow. I mean, starstruck here.
Yeah. We've only got the best here at Heritage helping us out with everything that we do. So
and our audience, man, they were fantastic.
We've got some great people out in the audience, so we're thrilled to have them. And we're going to continue to grow this thing. And so thank you for helping us get it kickstarted, my friend. Yeah. I'm wishing you a fantastic and successful 2025. And I look forward to the next time we get to have you on.
Right. And we got the second hour coming up now?
Yeah, second hour coming up. Yeah, the after show. Yeah, exactly. To all of you that joined us, thank you so much. We look forward to sharing more information with you and helping you understand what unlocked the success behind our agents and their tenure, not only in the industry, but here at Heritage. So until the next time, take care. We'll see you then. Thanks.